Well, we moved here in the early 50s, and that my parents were going into semi-retirement, and originally we come from Lameroo and near the Victorian border. My mother's sisters all lived in the Barossa, so she always said that when they retire that they'd like to be closer to them. So that's where we are, and we're still here 60 odd years later. There was 8 of us in the family, and I was the youngest, and so there was only my brother and myself that come over with the parents. Well, my father died in 1956, and so I was sort of left to sort of run the property. Those days that land in the Barossa was very tightly held, and that after we sort of paid off some of the debt on property, and we decided to look for a bit more land, and that and then fortunately we had neighbours. There was 2 bachelors there, and they were getting up in years, and that one of them come and seen me, wanted to know whether we'd was interested in buying a portion of their property, which I didn't have to get told twice. And that from there on, you know, we went through some pretty good times in the industry, and we slowly developed. And at that stage, Michael wanted to leave school and come home and work on the property. And fortunately, after the mid-80s, after the vine pool, export markets developed and demand for grapes increased, value went up, and Shiraz that they were after, and the property that we bought had a lot of Shiraz on it, so that really put us on our feet.
I'm Chief Viticulturist here at Schild Estate. One of my roles is director of the company with my father Ed, so we look after some 300 acres, so yeah, it keeps us fairly busy. I got some wonderful childhood memories of growing up in the Barossa. I mean, of course, coming home vintage time, when we used to do a lot of hand picking, there was always buckets to wash. I can always remember that was my job when I was a young kid, that Dad would always have to have the buckets on the front lawn, and we'd have to put the sprinkler on them and wash down the bucket. So yeah, wonderful childhood memories there, and it's quite remarkable because to this day now, our children still get the same roles. When they come home from school, their job is to come down to the workshop and help wash grape picking buckets if we've been hand picking for the day. So it's gone on from one generation to the next.
I'm one of the Schild women in the Schild family, one of Ed's daughters, and my role in the business is to look after the exporting and logistics area of the business. Growing up was really a great experience. We would explore different parts of the vineyard, go off mushrooming for the day. We did have a horse at one stage, and we used to enjoy riding our horse through the vineyard. Back in the day, we used to maybe wag a few days of school and join in with the hand-picking gang, and that was always full of great memories. So I officially started work with Schild Estate when we first opened our cellar door in Lindog. I used to work in the cellar door doing tastings, and that was lovely to meet people and to share our wines with them and share our story, and they were very interested to hear about the wines and our family history.
I've been lucky enough to be with Schild Estate just over 10 years, and I guess I came on board at a time when the family were really transitioning from a grape growing business into a wine business, and they decided to build their own facility, put their own winemaking team together rather than use other people to do that. So the last 10 years has really been focused about getting the winery off the ground, designing that, putting the team together and working through that process. Prior to that, I'd worked for a company that had operations in Saint-Emilion, in the Napa, and as well here in the Barossa. So I was lucky enough for about 6 or 7 years to make wine across 3 continents, which was super exciting but super busy. And prior to that, I worked for a number of Australian wine companies, which was a really great training ground, exposed me to a whole load of varieties there, and really kind of sowed the seed and forced the direction of what I wanted to do with my winemaking, which all led me to Schild Estate. I think, you know, it's a really interesting place, the Barossa. The Lutheran Silesian migrants who settled here had a lot of foresight in that it's a particularly good place to grow grapes. There's a myriad of soils and microclimates here. And so as a winemaker, that's an area that I love exploring.
Down here in the southern Barossa, we still get fairly warm daytime temperatures, but come, 6, 7 o'clock at night, you can usually feel the cooling gully breezes come in, and they blow quite strong here some nights, and you actually can go from a 40-degree day and come down to a gully breeze and wake up in the morning and you're back to 7, 8 degrees. So you get this wonderful temperature variation. As a viticulturalist, we've got some of the oldest vines in Australia, which are about 173 years of age. I feel very privileged, and it's something that I'll certainly want to pass on to the next generation. We tend to care for them and love them that little even bit more. We've got some wonderful old bush vines too that are about 100 and close to 105 years of age now, and I always reckon those old bush vines with their big arms sticking up, they look quite gnarly and wild, and they make wonderful quality wines. So some of our sustainable practices that we do out in the vineyard, we're heavily into trying to retain as much organic matter as possible. We do a lot of work with straw. We spread a lot of straw out in the vineyard to try and retain as much moisture as possible. We do a lot with cover cropping, trying to get more organic matter back in. We use a lot of moisture probes, so we're not over irrigating, so we're just using the correct amount of water to try and get the best quality fruit. We do a lot of work in their shoot thinning through the growing season, and then even come prior to harvest, we'll go through and get rid of some green bunches. So we do a bit of green bunch thinning, trying to extract best quality stuff. Working with our winemaking team, we're in constant conversation with our winemaking team. Come closer through the growing season, we're always once a month, Scott and myself will go out and have a look, see how it's all taking shape, and once vintage comes around, we Scott and myself, probably talk 2 or 3 times a day. One of the things I really enjoy is after picking a block through the night, and then you go back to the winery and you have a look in the open fermenters, and you get to have a look at all that hard work, and you think it's all in a little tank, and you think, gee whiz, that's taken 12 months to do that, and we just got it in a little tank now.
Yeah, I think, what's really important for us is the link between winemaking and viticulture. I don't think we could operate to such a level if we didn't do that. I think one of the unique things about Schild Estate, other than its location in the southern Barossa, is that we're almost an entirely estate-owned and grown operation. So because the family have such a diversity of holdings, that means we don't buy a lot of fruit other than a small 1 or 2 parcels from other people. And that means I deal with 1 vineyard manager rather than 60 growers. And I think that gives us a real level of control through the process, and also ensures we're working with the same parcels year on year and building our understanding of those. For us, what we're trying to do is really reflect what's happened to those vineyards over the last 12 months. If we get it right in the vineyard, our job really in the winery is to provide some gentle steering to the wines there. For us, there's a few things we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve some layers and interest in the wine. We want some points of discussion and some points to hook the drinker in. But we also want to make wines with no arms and legs sticking out. We want a real sense of balance to the wines. I think that's really important for us. And we also want a sense of deliciousness and refreshment. And so ultimately, I think that drives all we do here in the winery. The beauty of winemaking is we get to create something new each year. And I think, well, it's cyclical in some ways. No 2 years are the same. And I think that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it challenging. Someone said to me, if you're lucky in your winemaking career, you might get 45 vintages. And so for us, that's only 45 times to try and get something right. We can't go out tomorrow and make another batch. We have to wait the 12 months. And so I think there's a real challenge to make every post a winner when you're in the winemaking game.
So our customers can source Schild Estate wines all over Australia, all over the world, Europe, Asia, China, The USA is an important market for us throughout bottle shops, retail, restaurants, wholesale customers. My job is to make sure that the wines get to all of these places, and we have an amazing team at Schild Estate who help me do that. So one of our advantages, because we own all of our own vineyards, we've got the benefit of being able to control our supply to all of our markets. If there is a demand for a particular wine, we're able to meet that demand, and it's really rewarding to be able to share a glass of wine, and in doing that we are sharing part of our family history with those consumers, and it's a great experience, and I love what I do.
I think how far we went from the time we started with very little money to making our own wine, that it was a big change, and to see the end result, that whenever I have a glass of Schild Estate wines, I think, well, a pretty proud moment, I think, in your life.